Hey, what is going on, Bulls and Bears? It is Wednesday, July 21st, 2021. The founder of Shadow Stats is warning that the United States could possibly see Weimar Republic type of hyperinflation. So we're going to hear straight from the source, and we're going to talk about why he's saying that and what's leading up to that. We're also going to give you some other updates on some other areas that we think you need to be focused on here. But first of all, let me just go back to what we kind of have to come back to at least once a week here, because I still see a lot of people in comments that really don't understand what's going on. An example of what these people are saying or asking is, hey, JJ, where's the collapse? You've been saying there's a collapse. No, not a collapse in what you think is a collapse. A lot of people think of a collapse, they think falling prices. What you're seeing now is an inflationary collapse. You're seeing the collapse of your purchasing power. Maybe not every one of you listening, but most people are seeing prices rise for everyday goods and items that they need to have just to survive in many cases. Prices are rising faster for those items they have to buy versus what their incomes are. And in some cases, people are on fixed incomes and not seeing any raise in their overall income. So therefore, you need more and more payouts, more and more assistance handed out to the population, more and more forgiveness programs, moratoriums, freezes, eviction stoppage. And we're going to see what happens at the end of July with the federal ban on evictions expiring. And we've already seen several states pop up with their own version of the eviction moratorium. So that one's going to be a spotty issue to keep an eye on. You may see it really bad in some areas. Other areas, you're not going to see any difference because they're going to have their local laws in place. Well, let's take a listen to what John Williams had to say. Now, John Williams puts out Shadow Stats. He gives us a much more accurate picture on inflation and the unemployment number. For example, the real unemployment number, if you just look at the raw numbers, is about 25%. And we'll just take a quick peek at it here before we get to what John Williams had to say about this. But you see the official number, the U3, you see, that doesn't count long-term discouraged workers and people that are no longer qualifying for unemployment. So that's why you see it, right around 7%. But if you look at the blue line here, you'll see that's the real number, the raw number based on the number of people that are actually unemployed. And you see it's 26+% right now. Now let's take a quick listen to what John Williams had to say here in a recent interview. Take a listen.
I wanted to ask you for your outlook on inflation. You said that it's going to get higher. Do you think, and you used the word hyperinflation several times throughout this interview, in the first and second part, do you think we could potentially see hyperinflationary scenarios like the Weimar Republic? You mentioned the Weimar Republic. Do you think that could be the future of the United States?
Yes, it could be. What you're seeing right now in the way of what the Fed's doing, and it's money creation. It's still growing, expanding year over year. And again, the most liquid measure, what I call the basic M1, is up over 80% from its pre-pandemic level. You've never seen anything. As it increases here, the Fed's not about to pull back. They can't. The system's not stable. It's a very difficult and dangerous circumstance, but I think you're going to see that continue to spike. If the Fed can find a way of bringing down their money supply growth sharply, there may be a chance of containing it. But if we keep going like we're going, I'll contend that a lot of the inflation that you're seeing here is beginning to reflect that extraordinary money supply growth, and it's going to accelerate over the next 6 months. You figure there's at least a 3-4 month lead time with things, and so a lot of that's already in place. You're not pulled back at least for a couple of months, but if the Fed can somehow bring its money growth back under control.
Okay, so you heard what he said there. If the Fed can somehow bring their money growth under control, here's the problem. The system and the markets right now are so dependent on the Fed that if they pull back, you're going to see major correction, and that would be a deflationary correction if the Fed were to pull back and take a step back and take a hands-off approach. You would see the ultimate deflationary collapse. But if they keep their foot on the gas pedal of money creation, and there's many different ways they create money. It's not just printing money as many people think. It's monetizing the debt. They're taking the bad securities off of the books of these institutions, of the banks. An example would be mortgage-backed securities. And that enables banks and lenders to keep lending money. Even though home prices are getting higher and higher and higher, they have to hand out more and more bigger mortgages. Normally, that would be a risk to a bank when home prices get so high and when incomes are not increasing fast enough to justify such huge mortgages. Well, in this case, you don't have to worry about it. There's no attachment to incomes. And yes, to qualify for a mortgage, they're still going to look at your income. But when you have the Fed buying it all, including mortgage-backed securities, that pretty much takes the risks off of the banks and off of the lenders. So they're monetizing the debt, they're increasing the money supply, they're flooding the system with money. All right, and part of that is the stimulus checks, the unemployment benefits, and all the payouts and assistance. That's part of it. But it's much bigger than that, of course. But when you see the Fed this involved in the monetary system, in the markets and banking, etc., that is very, very dangerous, because if that support ever ends, that's when you see the most visible type of correction. That's the deflationary collapse. But something just as dangerous, and many people would say even more dangerous, will continue. It's already here, inflation, but it's going to continue possibly into hyperinflation, as John Williams put it, Weimar Republic type of hyperinflation. And how bad was the hyperinflation in the Weimar Republic? Well, this report here out of Business Insider gives us a pretty good snapshot of it. The truth about history's most infamous hyperinflation story. Weimar Germany after World War I went through one of the worst hyperinflationary events in history, unleashing untold horrors on the German people and their economy. So it's their words here, untold horrors. And here's a part out of this article that really caught my eye. During the war, the German government used extensive propaganda to hide the inflation from the population. Doesn't that sound familiar? Why do you think we have to look at alternative stats and statisticians like John Williams to figure out what's really going on with prices? Because we're not being told the truth out of the official sources, aka the Fed. Of course, they will tell you that it's the truth, but what they do is they just change the way that things are calculated. That way it doesn't look so shady, for lack of a better description. All right, more out of Weimar here. By September 1920, prices were 12 times as high as they had been before the war. So a 12-time increase. All right, so a one-time increase or doubling is basically 100% inflation. So we're talking over 1,000% inflation. So what used to cost $10 cost $100 plus, etc. All right, another excerpt out of this article. Meanwhile, amid the economic gloom of the lower and middle classes, the rich were spending money like crazy. Doesn't that sound familiar? Doesn't that seem like a lot what's happening today? The rich have so much money, they're out buying their second, third, their fourth yacht. They're buying just extraordinary amounts of real estate and property. And here's just a pretty recent example. Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan Chase CEO, awarded $50 million special bonus for remaining JP Morgan's CEO. So on top of all the billions of dollars that he already has, just for deciding to remain as CEO and not step down, an additional $50 million. All right, so everyone, again, when it comes to preparation for what's ahead, nobody knows exactly how this is going to play out. It could go all the way into hyperinflation with what we saw in Germany. Many people, including myself, agree that we're starting to see now the beginnings of hyperinflation. But no one can predict exactly how this is going to unfold. And that's why people like myself, we say it time and time again, we do not give financial advice. Everyone's situation is different. What I do is prepare for both scenarios. You want to have some assets. You want to have some items, some goods that are going to go up when you see hyperinflation and rising prices. But if you go all in and then you see a deflationary collapse, then you're going to be really in a lot of pain if you don't have some cash on the side or some purchasing power that's liquid. And you have to be very careful with liquid purchasing power, because money in the bank can also disappear with one of the things that could bring down or stop this inflation. And that would be 1, a blackout event, 2, a massive cyber attack. And the Fed's in a tough spot right now, so they're going to need something to take the blame off of themselves, because if they just pull back without some underlying cause or justification or crisis, then everyone's going to point the finger and they're going to say the Fed did this. The Fed, of course, they don't want that to happen. Nobody wants that to happen. No leader wants it to happen under their watch. The Fed doesn't want it to happen, or if they do want it to happen, they don't want it themselves to be blamed. So there has to be some outside, what they're going to say is an outside event that was out of their control that causes the collapse. So what will it be? Nobody knows. Maybe you know. If you do know, let me know down in the comments. Let everybody know. Some very smart people down there in comments like to hear from me on this. What do you think about John Williams? What do you think about the bonus for Jamie Dimon? The prediction from John Williams of the type of inflation that we saw in Weimar, Germany. Thanks everybody for being here. Stay well, keep stacking. Bye for now.